All right, well, I'm back at home here in the garage. Bit of a slower day today, so I'm going to do some work on the 40. That passenger side valve cover is leaking again, so I'm going to take everything off that side so I can get a better look in there to kind of see where it's leaking, where my issue is. I don't know if that valve cover is warped or what, but I don't think it's building crankcase pressure because I've got nothing in my catch can, and it's 5/8 lines coming out of those valve covers, so that shouldn't be the issue. So I've got some kind of other sealing issue going on there that I just got to figure out and fix proper this time. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to drop the oil, cut that filter part like I talked about earlier, make sure everything's good there. It might be just that I'm using thin oil because, I mean, when the truck's cold, it fires up, makes like 60, 70 pounds oil pressure, so that's fine that way. But when she's hot, it makes like 30 at idle. Goes back up to 40 when you're driving, but we'll see. So I'll put some thicker oil in it too, as long as the filter looks good on the inside anyway. So get a start on that and see what happens. This thing's incredibly dirty as well, but oh well. So yeah, you can't, I don't know if you can even see without me taking things apart. Not really. You can't even get my camera in there. Things are so tight. See what I'm working with here? So I'm just going to take all of that off so I can actually get my hands in there, see where it's leaking, and see what I have to do to fix it, because it's somewhere at the back here. You can kind of see that the header wrap's oily there at the back, so I'll get it figured out. Okay, so that's the valve cover out. You can see here, I got a nice split in it there, and another one over here. So, I don't think the issue is crankcase pressure or anything like that. I'm pretty sure it's just me when I go to install these things. Because it's pretty tight. If you look where I got my fuel pressure regulator, it's right up against where the valve cover sits. So, it's actually kind of difficult to get in with how tight the firewall and everything is to the cylinder head there. You kind of have to come in and like rotate it in to get it on top of the valve cover, and you're pushing everything out of the way to make it do that. So I think what I'm going to do is try and move this regulator forward, give myself a little bit more room, and by doing that should make it easier to put the valve cover in there and hopefully keep the gasket in one piece while I'm trying to install it, because that's like the fourth one this year, so I need to fix this problem. Diddy speed shop. Okay, so new gasket's installed. Got the valve cover torqued down. Still haven't reattached the fuel pressure regulator, but I'm going to space that out a bit. And yeah, hopefully that solves that issue. Next, I'll get it up on jack stands and change the oil and check that oil filter. Okay, valve cover's installed, coils are installed. I spaced out the pressure regulator, so there's actually an air gap there now. So that should help too. So I guess I'll drive it for a few more days, see if that fixes the problem, but now let's check that oil out. It doesn't look bad. A little brown. be expected. A little bit of metal on the pickup nose, but also expected. New rings, everything. Stuff's going to be breaking in. Get the filter off and have a look and see what it's like. Well, here's the old filter. This handy little tool, use it to cut apart the filter and have a look at the pleats inside. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend it. That way every time you change your oil, you can cut your filter apart and completely overreact and panic from everything that's inside of it. Honestly, probably just better off to go with ignorance is bliss, but it does tell you a lot. Whether you want to hear it or not, it is helpful. Actually, that looks pretty good. So I would say that my oil pressure issue, not really issue, oil pressure at idle is likely due to way too thin oil in this motor. I think I'm running 520 up. I'm going to put a 1030 in it. And likely a little bit too loose on the bearing side of things. A little too much gap, but slowly. This will be the real deciding factor to have a look in there. Oh yeah, there is nothing wrong with that. That is beautiful. So that's reassuring. Makes me feel a lot better about the engine anyway. Thicker oil. Maybe bump the idle up a little bit. It's probably honestly too low. It's half the battle. And all should be good. So it makes me feel a lot better about this engine. So that's about all I wanted to do in the garage today. I got the tappet cover gasket changed. I hopefully solved that issue by moving the fuel pressure regulator forward, giving myself a little bit more room to get that cover in and out. Because like I said before, I don't believe it was making crank pressure or anything because the catch can was always empty. So I think it was just me screwing the gasket up trying to get it in there because it's such a tight fit between the firewall and that regulator. So fingers crossed that that's sealed this time. I changed the oil, got the filter apart. Everything looks good in the filter, which makes me feel so much better. I put 1030 oil in it instead of 520, which I probably should have never ran in the first place, but oil pressure seems happy. Obviously, I haven't got the truck hot yet to see, where it sits hot at idle, but it's looking better so far. It is making more oil pressure than it did before, so that's a good sign. Not that it was low enough to be really concerned, but I'm always paranoid about that kind of stuff, especially after a fresh rebuild. It's kind of hard not to be. Other than that, I've just got some wiring issues to fix. My high beams don't work. I do believe that's going to come down to the foot switch that I've got. They have failed before and I had the same issue, so I'm going to check that. I want to double check some of the wiring that we did on the side of the road at 3 in the morning on Miles of Mayhem. So make sure that's all good, not rubbing anywhere, put it in a proper conduit so that it, has some protection. And while I was under there, I noticed a couple other wires hanging down. I just want to zip tie up, get out of the way, So just minor things left to do on the 40, and it should be good to put away for the winter. I'm hoping that the Biscayne's going to fit in my garage. I am working with a kind of a small space here, but I'll figure something out. If I can't work on it here, I'll work on it at the other shop. And yeah, hopefully all is good there. Can't wait to get started on another project. So once again, thank you for stopping by the channel. Thanks for hanging out in the garage with me here today. And definitely stick around. As always, there will be more.